Welcome to the Goated Clips channel. Sometimes you hear about a new technology and it feels kind of distant, like science fiction.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, with artificial intelligence, especially in education, it feels like that's really changing. It's not just theory anymore. It's actually showing up in classrooms and learning tools right now.
Absolutely. It's moved so fast, hasn't it?
It really has. And that's what we're diving into today, this whole evolving world of AI in education, or AIED, as it's often called.
That's right. We're doing a deep dive based on a pretty comprehensive report. It really unpacks, the impacts AI is having, the innovations we're seeing, but also the big ethical questions and the hurdles we face putting it all into practice.
Exactly. So think of this as like your shortcut to getting up to speed. We've sifted through the research to pull out the key insights, those aha moments. We want to give you a clear picture of what AIED is all about, why it matters, what it could do, and the important stuff we need to keep an eye on. No getting bogged down in jargon, just the core ideas.
Okay, so maybe the place to start is, why now? Why is AIED suddenly such a huge topic? A lot of people point to the ChatGPT moment.
Right, that makes sense. When tools like that became so widely available, suddenly everyone was talking about AI.
Exactly. It took AIED out of the sort of academic research labs and plopped it right into mainstream consciousness. Suddenly teachers, students, parents, everyone is thinking, okay, what does this mean for learning?
And when we say AI in this context, what are we actually talking about?
Good question. Fundamentally, it's about tech that can do things that typically need human intelligence. So learning from data, reasoning through problems, making predictions, understanding language, that kind of thing. Applied to education, obviously.
So it's gone from a niche research thing to something everyone's grappling with.
Pretty much, yeah. And the big promise, the exciting part that the report highlights, is creating learning environments that are way more responsive, maybe even proactive,
Sure.
more personalized.
Personalized learning. That comes up a lot, doesn't it? The idea that education could adapt to each individual student.
It's a huge driver. Imagine learning pathways that adjust based on your progress, offering support exactly when you need it. That's the potential we're talking about.
But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? The report also flags some pretty serious ethical questions.
Oh, definitely. Things like data privacy. Where does all that student information go? Algorithmic bias. Are the AI tools fair to everyone? Academic integrity. Well, we know about that one with things like ChatGPT. And, what happens to the role of the teacher? Plus, the equity issue, the digital divide, is real.
So lots to unpack there. And the definition of AI-EAT itself keeps evolving too, right? It's not just one thing.
Not at all. It ranges from, say, adaptive learning systems that adjust difficulty all the way to these powerful generative AI models. And each type brings different opportunities, but also different challenges.
Okay, let's dive into the impact AI is having right now. The report calls it multifaceted. Where should we start? Maybe with that personalization piece.
Yeah, let's start there. Revolutionizing learning through personalization. This is where AI really shines, potentially. It can analyze vast amounts of data, how a student answers questions, how long they take, what they click on to build a profile.
And then use that profile to tailor things.
Exactly. Tailor the content, the pace of learning, the type of support offered. The report mentions specific examples like adaptive learning systems, think Dreambox Learning or Newton Alta. These platforms dynamically adjust the learning path based on how the student is doing in real time.
Wow, so it's constantly optimizing the experience for that specific learner. The report suggests this can boost their confidence, their attitude towards learning.
That's the idea. If learning feels less frustrating and more attuned to your needs, you're likely to feel more capable and engaged. It moves away from that one-size-fits-all model.
But there's a caution mentioned too, right? About learning becoming too isolated.
Yes, that's a crucial point. There's a risk of what the report calls atomized learning, where students are just interacting with the tech and missing out on collaboration, discussion, social emotional learning. The emphasis has to be on AI enhancing human interaction, not replacing it.
Right, augmentation, not replacement. That seems key. Okay, what about the impact on teachers and the admin side of things?
This is another big area. AI can automate a lot of the tasks that eat up educators' time. Think grading multiple choice tests, scheduling, keeping records, even handling common student queries via chatbots.
Oh, that can make a huge difference. I remember seeing a stat, maybe from that KPMG poll the report mentioned, something about higher ed staff saving time with AI.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was around 70% using generative AI and 64% reporting time savings. That's significant. It frees educators up to focus on the uniquely human parts of teaching mentoring, deeper discussions, supporting individual students, fostering creativity.
So AI becomes almost like a teaching assistant, helping with lesson plans, maybe identifying where students are getting stuck,
Precisely. It can analyze patterns in student work to flag common misconceptions or suggest resources. But again, there's a flip side.
which is,
Well, there's a risk that instead of freeing up time, AI just leads to increased workload in other areas or maybe even cuts to support staff. So thoughtful policies are really important here. It needs careful implementation.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, the third area of impact mentioned is assessment, feedback, and learning analytics. How is AI changing how we measure and understand learning?
This is a big one. AI allows for real-time tracking of student progress. You can see almost instantly who's struggling and who needs a bigger challenge. Automated feedback systems can give students immediate input on their work, which is often way faster than waiting for a teacher to grade everything.
Instant feedback sounds amazing for a student.
It can be incredibly valuable. And then there are learning analytics dashboards. These tools pull together all sorts of data to give teachers and administrators a clearer picture of learning trends, intervention effectiveness, you name it. The report points to a 2024 IGCAUSE study showing increased use here, data-driven decision-making, basically.
But assessment is tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially high-stakes tests. Can AI really evaluate complex things like essays or creative projects effectively?
That's a really contentious point. The report highlights this. While AI can be great for objective assessments, it struggles with nuance, creativity, critical analysis in, say, an essay. There's a researcher mentioned Selwyn who points out that not everything important in education can be easily quantified.
Like ethical reasoning or deep understanding.
Exactly. Relying too heavily on AI for assessment could mean we end up neglecting those crucial, harder to measure skills. So the consensus seems to be leaning towards a hybrid approach. Use AI for what it's good at, but always keep human judgment in the loop, especially for complex evaluations.
Okay, that hybrid model makes sense. So AI provides data and efficiency, but humans handle the deeper evaluation.
Pretty much. The report actually has a useful table, Table 1, that lists key AI applications and their specific impacts, giving concrete examples of these tools in action.
Good to know. All right, let's shift gears a bit and look at the innovations shaping the future of AIE. What's coming down the pipeline?
One major area is intelligent tutoring systems, or ITS. These have been around for a while in research, but they're getting much more sophisticated. The goal is to mimic a really good one-on-one human tutor.
Like a personal AI tutor for every student. How does that work?
Well, they typically have a few core components. A domain model holds the knowledge of the subject being taught. A student model tracks what the individual student knows, their misconceptions, how they learn best. And a tutoring model uses that information to decide what to teach next, how to explain it, what kind of feedback to give, all delivered through some kind of user interface.
So it's constantly adapting based on my specific understanding?
That's the idea. The benefits are potentially huge. Truly personalized learning, immediate targeted feedback, scalability. You can offer this to many students, and it generates really rich data about the learning process.
And I bet the new large language models, the LLMs, are making these even better.
Absolutely. They're allowing for much more natural conversational interactions. The report mentions examples like Carnegie Learning's cognitive tutors, which have a long history, and newer ones like Khan Academy's Conmigo or AutoTutor. They feel less like clunky software and more like helpful guides.
Kamigo's getting a lot of buzz. It sounds really promising.
It is. Now, another huge innovation, maybe the biggest one right now, is generative AI.
Right, ChatGPT and its cousins. It feels like they exploded onto the scene.
They really did. Their ability to generate human-like text, images, codes, summaries, you name it, based on simple prompts is, well, it's transformative. And people are using them for everything in education.
How are students using them? The report mentioned that KPMG poll again.
Yeah, students are using them for brainstorming ideas, helping with research, summarizing long texts, drafting essays. The poll found something like 59% of students are using generative AI.
And educators.
They're exploring it for lesson planning, creating teaching materials, generating quiz questions, even setting up interactive learning scenarios. It can also enhance educational videos, like adding personalized elements or automated translations.
So tons of potential applications,
Yeah.
but also big challenges, right? Academic integrity is the obvious one.
Huge. How do you ensure students are actually learning and doing the work themselves? Then there's the impact on critical thinking and writing skills if students just rely on AI to generate everything, and the problem of hallucinations, AI making stuff up.
Yeah, you definitely can't trust everything it outputs.
Not at all. So, developing critical evaluation skills in media literacy becomes even more important. Students and teachers need to know how these tools work, their limitations, and how to use them responsibly.
There's also a potential tension mentioned, isn't there, between generative AI just giving answers and the deeper guidance of something like an ITS.
That's a really interesting point. Generative AI is great at producing content quickly, but it might not provide the structured pedagogical guidance that a well-designed ITS can offer. Ideally, we'll see more integration between the two.
Okay, and another key area of innovation is AI for inclusive education. How can AI help learners with diverse needs?
This is a really hopeful area. AI can support students with special educational needs, SEN, by offering highly personalized learning pathways, adaptive feedback, and specialized tools. Think assistive tech like augmentative communication apps, computer vision tools for visually impaired students, or even memory aids.
And what about language diversity?
AI-powered machine translation and real-time captioning can be game changers for multilingual classrooms. Tools like otter.ai or rev.com for captioning and adaptive language learning platforms like Duolingo make content much more accessible. It aligns really well with the principles of universal design for learning, or UDL, creating flexible learning environments for everyone.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
But is there a risk of bias here too?
Unfortunately, yes. It's a paradox. AI can promote inclusion, but if the data used to train the AI is biased, the AI itself can perpetuate or even worsen inequalities. Think about speech recognition struggling with certain accents, or facial recognition performing poorly for some demographic groups, or learning analytics flagging certain students unfairly.
So the data quality is crucial.
Absolutely critical. We need diverse training data, ongoing audits for bias, mechanisms to detect and correct bias, and involving diverse users in the design process co-design. Explainable AI, or XAI, which helps us understand why an AI made a certain decision, is also important here.
It seems like understanding AI, its capabilities, limits, ethics, is vital for everyone involved. AI literacy.
Exactly. It's a massive piece of the puzzle. Both educators and students need to be AI literate. And it's not just about knowing how to use the tools, it's about understanding fundamentally how they work, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and the ethical implications of using them.
Without that literacy, you risk misuse, like plagiarism or just underutilization, right? People won't know how to leverage it effectively.
Precisely. That's why there's a growing call for comprehensive AI literacy programs in schools and teacher training. Organizations like UNESCO and the OECD are developing frameworks for this, focusing on both technical skills and that crucial ethical awareness and critical thinking component.
This is all incredibly insightful. If you're finding this deep dive into AI and education as fascinating as we are, make sure you follow us on YouTube Goated Clips channel for more explorations like this.
Okay, so we've talked impact and innovation. Let's look briefly at how AI is playing out across different educational sectors. K-12, higher ed, vocational training. Are the applications and challenges different?
It seems like in K-12, the focus is really strong on that personalized learning aspect we discussed, using tools like Quizlet or Khan Academy, and also helping teachers with admin tasks and maybe finding supplementary materials.
That's generally true. But K-12 also faces unique challenges. Many school systems are still based on an older industrial-age model, which can make integrating flexible AI tools difficult. And the digital divide is often starker here. A RAND report found lower AI use in schools with higher poverty levels.
So there's a real risk AI could actually widen inequality if access isn't equitable.
A significant risk, yes. Plus, there's the whole push for teaching 21st century skills and figuring out how AI fits into that.
Okay, what about higher education, universities and colleges?
Higher ed is using AI in, well, quite a few ways. Personalized learning pathways, certainly, but also things like AI tutors for specific subjects, AI-powered advising to help students navigate course selection and careers, tools for recruitment and retention, research assistance for faculty and grad students, and, of course, administrative efficiency.
And the generative AI impact seems particularly big in higher ed, with students using it for assignments.
Yes, that KPMG poll highlighted significant student use. It raises huge questions about academic integrity, plagiarism detection, and how assessment needs to change. There's also some interesting research mentioned from Anthropic about how students are using tools like Claude differently across disciplines more in STEM, especially computer science, than in humanities. That could lead to a kind of AI skills gap.
Interesting. So lots of potential, but also lots of grappling with the ethical side, plagiarism, data privacy, bias, responsible use policies.
Definitely. The EDUCAUSE AI landscape study showed a sort of cautious optimism among university leaders, but a clear recognition that strong ethical guidelines are urgently needed.
And vocational education and training, or VET. You touched on this earlier.
Right. In VET, the focus is often very practical. Skill-specific personalization, using AI for perhaps more objective, unbiased assessment of practical skills, giving real-time feedback during training exercises. Tools like Grade or Squirrel AI Learning were mentioned. Sometimes they combine AI with VR or AR for realistic job simulations, or use IoT sensors for feedback on physical tasks. Singapore's Skills Future initiative even uses AI for occupation profiling to match training with job market needs.
Sounds very targeted. Do they face the same challenges?
Pretty much, yes. Data privacy, potential bias in assessment algorithms, the digital divide affecting access to training tech, and the risk of over-relying on AI instead of developing deeper understanding. But because VET often deals with more well-defined skills and learning environments, AI adoption can sometimes be quite impactful relatively quickly.
It's helpful to see that breakdown. The report also mentioned some global success stories, didn't it?
It did. Briefly, places like Brainly for peer-to-peer homework help, Berlitz for language pronunciation, EUDE Business School's virtual tutors, Khan Academy and Duolingo we've mentioned, even Bolton College in the UK using AI for creating educational videos efficiently. They all report benefits like better engagement, improved learning experiences, or administrative savings.
That's encouraging. What about AI aid in developing countries? Huge potential, but maybe bigger hurdles.
Exactly. The promise is immense, potentially leapfrogging traditional infrastructure gaps, providing personalized learning where teacher shortages exist. Some countries like South Korea and the UAE are investing heavily. Organizations like UNICEF are exploring AI. There are examples like Kabaku academies in Mali using tech for local problem solving, or Letras in Brazil helping with literacy.
But the challenges must be significant.
Huge. The digital divide isn't just about devices, it's often about reliable electricity and internet access, which UNESCO data shows is lacking in many schools globally. Digital literacy levels can be low among both students and teachers. Costs are a major barrier. And ensuring the AI content is culturally relevant and useful is another challenge. Foundational issues need tackling first.
Right. So, potential, yes, but context is everything. The report sums this up nicely in another table, Table 2, comparing AI across these different sectors.
Yeah, it provides a good consolidated view.
Okay, this leads us squarely into the ethical maze, as the report puts it. We've touched on some of these, but let's maybe focus on them a bit more. Data privacy seems paramount.
It really is. These AI systems, especially personalized learning ones, collect enormous amounts of data. Performance data, engagement logs, sometimes even personal characteristics. The concern is how this data is stored, used, who has access. Could it be misused, sold, hacked?
Are there legal frameworks to protect this?
There are, like FERPA and COPPA in the US, GDPR in Europe, but the pace of AI evolution often outstrips these regulations. They weren't necessarily designed with today's complex AI data collection in mind.
So what can be done? Mitigation strategies.
Robust data protection measures are key: encryption, anonymization where possible, clear institutional policies on data use and access, transparency for students and parents about what data is collected and why, and maybe ethical review boards to oversee AI implementation.
Okay, next big ethical issue. Algorithmic bias, fairness, equity. We touched on this with inclusion.
Right. The core problem is that AI learns from data. And if that data reflects existing societal biases around race, gender, socioeconomic status, language, disability, the AI will learn and likely perpetuate those biases.
How might that actually show up in education?
It could be biased assessment tools that unfairly disadvantage certain groups, recommendation engines that steer students towards stereotypical pathways, feedback systems that are harsher or less helpful for some, even in high-stakes decisions about admissions or support allocation.
That's really worrying. How do we fight that bias?
It requires deliberate effort, using diverse and representative data sets for training, conducting regular bias audits of AI systems, building in mechanisms to detect and flag potential bias, using explainable AI, XAI, to understand why an AI makes certain predictions, and crucially, involving all stakeholders, especially those from potentially marginalized groups, in the design and testing process.
Makes sense. Now, the one that's really exploded recently, academic integrity, plagiarism, and the authenticity of learning. especially with generative AI.
Yeah, this is a massive headache for educators right now. Generative AI can produce essays, codes, solutions that are often indistinguishable from human work. We saw the stats on student usage. Many students themselves feel uneasy about it, according to the report.
What about AI detection tools? Can they solve it?
They exist, but their effectiveness and fairness are hotly debated. They can have false positives, potentially penalizing innocent students. And AI models are constantly evolving, making detection a moving target.
So what's the answer? Banning AI.
Most experts think banning isn't feasible or even desirable long term. The focus seems to be shifting towards pedagogy. How can we redesign assignments to focus more on the process of learning rather than just the final product? How can we teach students to use AI ethically and critically as a tool, maybe for brainstorming or first drafts, but not for passing off work as their own? How do we assess higher order thinking, like applying knowledge in novel ways, which AI struggles with?
So rethinking assessment and teaching ethical use.
Exactly. It requires a significant pedagogical shift.
Okay, another big one. The evolving role of educators. Is AI going to replace teachers?
The overwhelming consensus in the report, and from experts generally, is no. AI should augment teachers, not replace them. The idea is that by automating some tasks, AI frees teachers to focus on the things AI can't do well,
Like what?
like building relationships, providing emotional support, fostering collaboration, teaching complex critical thinking, adapting to unexpected student needs, empathy, mentorship. UNESCO has a great quote about the importance of the human connection in teaching that AI can't replicate.
So the teacher's role shifts more towards being a facilitator, a mentor, focusing on those higher order, uniquely human skills.
That's the vision. But it requires significant professional development for teachers, not just in using AI tools, but also in honing these relational and facilitation skills.
And finally, in the ethics section, the impact on critical thinking, creativity, and student agency. Is there a risk we become too reliant on AI?
There absolutely is. If students constantly turn to AI for answers or to generate content, it could diminish their own cognitive processes, critical analysis, problem solving, writing skills, even memory. We risk losing fundamental skills.
But could AI also foster creativity?
Potentially, yes. If used as a tool for exploration, for generating novel ideas to build upon, for expression in new ways, it could enhance creativity and agency. The key is balance. Balancing AI use with activities that explicitly promote deep thinking, critical evaluation of information, including AI outputs, and independent problem solving.
So it's all about how we integrate it. The report summarizes these ethical concerns and mitigation strategies in Table 3, which sounds useful.
Very useful for getting a clear overview.
All right, we've covered the impacts, innovations, and ethics. But putting AI into practice isn't easy. Let's talk about overcoming the hurdles. The digital divide seems like a major one.
It's fundamental. Unequal access to devices, reliable internet, and the AI tools themselves is a huge barrier. UNESCO data highlights how many schools globally still lack basic connectivity, and sophisticated AI tools often come with high costs for adoption and maintenance.
And this gap could actually widen as AI gets more advanced.
That's the fear. Those with resources pull further ahead. Solutions require a multi-pronged approach. Government investment in infrastructure, subsidies, partnerships with the private sector, promoting affordable or open-source AI tools, and ensuring equitable distribution of resources within education systems.
Okay, another hurdle. The AI literacy gap, which we touched on earlier, especially among educators.
Yes, many educators lack confidence and training in using AI effectively and ethically. One study mentioned found only about 30% felt moderately confident. And again, AI literacy isn't just technical skill. It's understanding the implications, the ethics, being able to evaluate AI critically. Frameworks from UNESCO and OECD are trying to define this.
So the solution is more training.
Sustained, high-quality professional development, yes. And integrating AI literacy into student curricula from an early age, it needs to become a core competency for everyone.
And what about just resistance to change?
Yeah.
And the lack of clear rules or policies?
They often go hand in hand. Educators might hesitate due to lack of understanding, fear of irrelevance, concerns about increased workload, or just institutional inertia. We've always done it this way. And this hesitation is fueled by the lack of clear policies from schools or governments on ethical AI use, academic integrity, data management, how to choose and buy AI tools.
This sounds like a cycle. Policy gaps fuel resistance, which slows policy development.
Exactly. Breaking that cycle requires leadership from the top to set clear policies and vision, but also bottom-up engagement with educators to address their concerns. Phased implementation, providing robust support and training, and celebrating early successes can help build momentum. Table 4 in the report outlines these challenges and offers recommendations.
Okay, so looking ahead, charting the course, what are the future projections? What are experts predicting?
Well, looking towards, say, 2040, many experts surveyed believe AI's influence will be mostly beneficial. They see ICE becoming common, AI transforming assessment and analytics, and automation handling many routine tasks. The World Economic Forum also highlighted AI's potential to improve learning outcomes and scale literacy globally.
But there are longer-term concerns, too.
Yes. Worries about diminished student agency, erosion of critical thinking if we're not careful, potential impacts on future employment as AI takes over more tasks, and even fundamental questions about what it means to be human in an AI-infused world. There's a need to connect the near-term practical recommendations with these bigger, long-term societal shifts. Education needs a bit of a futurist mindset.
Are there international bodies providing guidance?
Yes, UNESCO and the OECD are prominent. UNESCO emphasizes a human-centered approach, ethical principles, and developing competency frameworks for both students and teachers. Their view is very much AI augmenting human capabilities.
And the OECD?
They've developed an AI literacy framework specifically for K-12, focusing on understanding AI, co-creating with it, and reflecting ethically. They're also researching AI's impact on future skills demand and pushing for more collaborative research, especially on generative AI in education. The challenge, of course, is adapting these global frameworks to diverse local needs and contexts.
So, pulling it all together, what are the key recommendations for the different players involved? Educators, institutions, policymakers, AI developers.
For educators, it's about embracing lifelong learning, continually updating their skills, focusing on those crucial human skills AI can't replicate, using AI as an assistant to enhance their practice, and getting involved in the design and evaluation of AIE tools.
And for schools and universities.
They need to develop clear, ethical policies, invest in the necessary digital infrastructure, provide comprehensive AI literacy training for everyone, foster a culture of responsible experimentation, and importantly, be willing to redesign curricula and assessment methods to leverage AI effectively and address its challenges.
What about policymakers, governments?
They need to create national or regional strategies for AI in education. Invest in research and development, support infrastructure development, especially in underserved areas, and create flexible regulatory frameworks that encourage innovation while safeguarding ethics and equity.
And finally, the AI developers and edtech companies themselves.
Ethics by design needs to be paramount. They must collaborate closely with educators and students throughout the development process, ensure their tools are accessible, user-friendly, and effective, and provide clear documentation, training, and ongoing support. It really requires unprecedented collaboration across this whole ecosystem.
Collaboration seems to be the watchword. It's not something any one group can figure out alone.
Absolutely not. Building this future requires everyone working together.
This has been a really comprehensive look at AI in education. We've covered so much ground, from the immediate impacts and exciting innovations to the critical ethical considerations and the challenges ahead.
It really is a transformative moment. The potential to personalize learning, boost efficiency, and create new pedagogical approaches is immense. But, as we've discussed, responsible and ethical integration is absolutely crucial.
The core message seems to be human-AI collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Augmenting our capabilities, not replacing the human element.
Exactly. It's about finding that synergy.
So to leave our listeners with something to chew on, as AI becomes ever more woven into the fabric of education, how might our very definition of what constitutes effective learning start to change? What skills or qualities will we value most in an AI-enhanced future?
That's a deep question and one we'll all need to grapple with.
Definitely something to think about. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube Goated Clicks channel for more deep dives into fascinating topics like this one.
We really hope this discussion has given you a clearer understanding of the complex and exciting world of AI in education.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Goated Clips channel.